I mean, keep in mind, this was me as a very, very young man.
No judgment, no judgment.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Phil, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. If I understand correctly, I should say happy belated 40th anniversary as well.
Thank you very much. I'm old officially.
Now the album's out now for roughly a month as we're talking. It's been getting really good, positive reactions. I had a chance to listen to the album as well before it came out. For me, kind of came out of nowhere, and very much enjoyed the album as well. When you're working on a net new project like that and something that you've wanted to do for a long time but just didn't get the time for, when it actually does come together and comes out and you're seeing all these positive reviews and reactions to it, that must feel good. Bit of a weight off your shoulders, or was this because it was a quote-unquote side project? Doesn't it really matter the reaction for you?
Well, I of course appreciate it when people give me positive reviews, but really this was a project that is just something that I wanted to do to fulfill some musical interests that I've always had. I've had the great fortune of playing music all over the world, playing thrash metal and playing death metal, and I've put out a lot of music in those genres, but this is the first time that I've branched out and really tried something completely different with some mellow death, melodic black metal. It's a combination of a lot of things, and just really spread my wings in my songwriting and really try to elaborate on some musical ideas that I haven't been able to elaborate on yet.
With Matthias singing on the record, Vreth from Fintroll, on paper, if you say an American thrasher and a Finnish folk metal musician work together on a project, it sounds like the beginning of a joke. Apart from both of you being 40 years old, as far as I know, what's the connection? How did you get engaged with him?
Well, it started with another thing I was doing with this band is I've begun an animation project. I started doing a lot of animation, and I completed one video for the first single on the album, Universal Funeral, and that was my first foray into animation. But while I was working on that video, I saw that Fintroll had put out an animated video as well, and that got my attention. And right about that time, we were looking for vocalists, and so I thought I'll hit him up. He also came up on my social media just randomly, like suggested friends or something.
Okay.
And it just sort of randomly happened. And because of that animated video and because of the Facebook thing, I just hit him up, and he got right back to me, and he was like, "Yeah, I know about municipal waste," and he showed me a picture of this municipal waste hot sauce that he had at his house. And then once he found out that Dave Witte was involved with the project, he was fully on board, and we provided him with the lyrics and the vocal patterns, but he did, however, elaborate on a few things and provide his input on a few things. But what he did was great, and I really appreciate his input on the music.
When the album kicks off, it's just like this full-on, almost like black and roll assault that we get, and then by the time that Cursed to March on Shattered Limbs comes on, you take us from black and roll all the way to golden era Maiden, maybe still in a blackened style. And then halfway through some acoustic guitar, we come to Satyricon and 90s black metal. There's so much going on in the album. Is that just because you had so many ideas through the years that you couldn't find a home for in the other bands that you play with? Or was it always kind of your intention to, for this project specifically, not to kind of stay within the confines of one specific genre?
Well, bottom line is I want the songs to be entertaining from start to finish. I want them to be interesting for the listener, and I wanted it to sound obviously very black metal and melodic death influenced. So there are things that kind of branch out from a general black metal idea, but for the most part, I just was doing things to be dynamic. Like if there was one riff that was particularly brutal or fast, I would try to follow it up with something that was slow or even an acoustic part, you know, and just try to be dynamic between riffs just to keep the audience's attention, which sometimes can be very difficult in extreme metal because once the drums and guitars are going full pace,
right,
it can become a blur of notes and stuff. So having these other elements that I can toy around with, like symphonic elements and acoustic elements, just helps the songs be much more dynamic. And really the songwriting, I didn't really have anything planned going in. This was really just a burst of creativity that I had in 2020. You know, obviously that year I found myself with a little extra free time. So it was just a full-on burst of just sitting there and playing guitar and just making it happen. And once songs started to form, I started to notice that they were turning out pretty good, in my opinion. And so that started getting me more and more excited. And then I would add more stuff, and I would add more bells and whistles and solos and whatever else, and just build and build and build. And the end result just turned out to be pretty dynamic.
When an album like this is released, when a brainchild of one particular person working with people from, you know, all over the world in this case, and everybody involved is doing a million things. Also, you're talking to me right now on the road with Valient Thorr. We unfortunately see a lot of these great albums that live and die as a studio project, and that's it. Because everybody involved is so much on the go, and calendars are full and what have you. What are your plans here? Is this something that you want? Is this something that you want to, you know, keep fueling for a longer time, and then also potentially take on the road? What should our expectations be?
Yeah, I'm going to try to take this as far as I can take it. I've got the animation project aspect of this as well, which was a whole nother thing. Like the first animated video, which you can check out now on YouTube, for Universal Funeral. I didn't know anything about animation when I started. So from concept to completion, it was probably about 6 months of very intense labor trying to get that thing done. And now I'm working on a second one for the album, for the song Born of Phantom Vessel. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through. So I'm hoping to drop that somewhere at the end of February maybe. And but in that time, I've got time off at the beginning of the year, so I'm going to try to get the live band together and get some rehearsals together. I've got some musicians lined up that can more than handle all the parts. So hopefully we can get out there and bring these songs to the people, hopefully, in the future. It's just an exciting new project. It's fun to just do something completely different, and there's so many ideas still left on the table in this style. You can basically do anything you want, and in my head I want to create albums that are as well produced and dynamic as like any of the Satyricon records or anything, you know, or Emperor, or you know. And it's just a challenge to create this kind of music, and there's so many elements, from the symphonic to the acoustic guitars to the solos. it's a lot when you're tracking, and it was definitely a huge challenge. And now that I've done it once, I'm ready to do it again. I just love music. I just love making music. Creating new records is my favorite part about being in a band. At this point, on my metal wiki, it says that I have over 38 releases, including like singles and EPs and stuff. So I want to get that up to like 50 or something maybe. And I'm just gonna keep going. I have this story. Even as a kid, I was creating fake bands, and I would take cassettes and take the cover out, and then make my own covers for my own fake band. And I had all these tapes of bands that I was in that had no music, just the covers, you know. And I kind of compare it with that. I guess I got bit by the bug then, and so I'm just going to keep her going, and I'm glad that there's people out there that are interested in the music, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. Is there a particular fake band that you came up with 35 years ago or 25 years ago that is on the wish list to one day make it a reality?
Well, I do, however, remember one of the band names. I mean, keep in mind, this was me as a very, very young man.
No judgment.
So I remember the one band was called Crack of Dawn. I guess I thought that that's underwhelming, but I guess as a kid I thought that sounded cool. And and I also had another band called Stitcho, which was like, I don't know, who knows what I was thinking. But it's always an interesting question when you ask people what their first band name is.
For sure.
I posed that question on Facebook, and it was like one of the posts that got the most responses. You know, I was like, what was the name of your first band? And, you know, I had over 300 replies of people with their first band name. And there were some people that were like, my first band was called this, and I'm still in that band. You know, some of the rare ones, you know. So, I don't know. There you have it.
Awesome. I mean, when you say Crack of Dawn, like I envision like some epic doom, maybe with some buttocks-shaped hills in the background of a scenery, kind of like a Spinal Tap with a Break Like the Wind, one of their albums, and then Stitcho sounds more like a new metal project or something like that. But why not?
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely didn't know much about metal genres or anything. I think I, at that point, maybe have heard Iron Maiden or something. You know, I was just a little kid, and whatever was on MTV at the time, which I barely ever watched. I was more interested in the time of, like, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something.
But, you know, you mentioned Satyricon, I mentioned Satyricon before, you mentioned Iron Maiden, I mentioned Iron Maiden. Two very important bands for you?
Absolutely. I mean, Iron Maiden, of course, you know, metal gods, Judas Priest, you know, I love classic metal bands, just about all of them. And when it comes to black metal, Satyricon, Immortal, Mayhem, Emperor, you know, the fathers of black metal. But there's definitely some, I don't want to say lower tier, but, you know, more underground black metal.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say mostly I listen to a lot of those bands, like the bigger production bands, you know, bands like Demi Borgir and stuff, you know.
Right.
I just like hearing how many tracks they can use on an album, and it's just an intense amount of work, especially once you've made a black metal record. You learn to appreciate how much extra work it is to create all these extra elements and weave in symphonic parts, and it's very, and so I like listening to those bands and seeing how they do it. And I mean, it's an intense amount of work.
Phil, I know that you are, you know, in the middle of a tour, and you're probably eager to, you know, join the guys from Valient Thorr for some food or drinks. I don't know, but I want to let you go. But I also want to say thank you for, you know, releasing this cool new album, which was a surprise, I think, to a lot of people, including myself. And I I've seen a lot of black metal fans, you know, embracing it, which is not always the case when a non-black metal artist releases a black metal album all of a sudden. So really cool release to see, and I genuinely hope that we get to see you play that music from a stage, and then hopefully you find the time to come up to Toronto here, and we can see you play that music. But before you do that, I know you've got a million more shows to play with an equal amount of bands, so thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.